Meeting is being live streamed. Got it. I'm gonna let in Lisa P. We're still waiting for a couple more board members. Are we live streaming, Vanessa? Good. All right. We're just waiting for AJ now. Good. All right. And then we'll be able to start as soon as AJ gets in here, we'll open up the waiting room and begin.
And is George here?
George is sorry. Good. George is not here yet. So two more. We got 2 minutes. Sit tight, everybody. We're getting good with this live stream, so I think we might even be able to push it now to 6:58 before we go to live stream.
I added a little extra layers in the Zoom this time because it's a different meeting. So yay, it works.
It worked. It was smooth as butter.
And if anybody texts or anything like that, that they have not gone live yet, always just recommend that they refresh their YouTube screen and that should catch them up.
Linda, I'm going to pin you up to the top with Hillary so that you both stay at the top.
Ouch. Ow, that hurts. Ouch.
That's right. Yeah, we're still missing George and AJ, and we got 1 minute, and then we're going to go live or go start the meeting. I will let them in as they join, but we want to start the meeting at 7 o'clock.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Is there more than one copy of the revenue projections? I have 2 copies for some reason.
You should have one that's specific. I sent today that was specific to cruise, that just is their passes. But the one that I sent last Wednesday is the budget document that you guys will be working from today.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, still waiting for George, but Hillary, you can go ahead and get started. And
Kirsten,
yes?
Can you resend George the link?
It's on the .NET site. All he has to do is go to the .NET site and click on the link. So it'll probably be quicker for him to just go to the .NET site and do that. It's like the very first event in the right-hand corner on the .NET site. So, okay, I'm going to admit all and we can start the meeting and we'll let George in when he gets here. Okay. Everybody's coming in from the waiting room. And I will keep my eye out for George. Okay, Hillary, the floor is yours.
Linda's going to facilitate.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I'll kick it off. Thank you, Kirsten. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the annual board budget committee meeting. We're going to do 2 things this year. We're going to also do the financial planning committee recommendations. We're going to review those and look at the revenue projections and vote on that. And then we will go through all of the budgets. Any changes necessary for the agenda? Okay, awesome. Thanks everybody for coming. And thanks to the budget committee members who are here. Thank you so much for all of your efforts for the year that you've put in and getting these recommendations together. And I also want to thank all of the staff members for a tremendous amount of support that they provided this year. Totally awesome. And I did not have the agenda down. I had the agenda down too far and I missed the announcements. So we're going to go back for a second and get announcements. So if anybody has announcements, we'll start with that. Lucy, you have the floor.
You're muted,
Lucy?
Lucy.
Yes, yes, thank you. I see that. It is toward the end of my life, and I find myself in a dark wood where it is bitter cold and I am sick at heart. I believe that a community whose mission is to foster and preserve an alternative way of life needs to govern itself accordingly, collaboratively, cooperatively, and collectively. Over the past year and a half, my efforts to protect and maintain these standards and values have failed. I've been a member of the inventory crew since the late 80s. In 2004, I was appointed by the management team to provide integrity, transparency, accountability, and oversight to the allocation, payment, and distribution of the fair's inventory of wristbands, vehicle stickers, day passes, and food vouchers. I agreed to do the job for a year. Turns out I loved it, was good at it, and I've been doing it ever since. I am neither interested nor willing to serve in this capacity under a leadership whose model is hierarchical, paternalistic, with performative transparency, with no controls or oversight over said inventory. A side note, the Budget Committee has not reviewed or approved the allocation of vehicle stickers. Effective immediately, I am resigning my position from the inventory crew and from the Budget Committee. I recognize that this action creates one less voice in the prevailing wind I personally find hostile and oppressive. Earlier this evening, I did go by the fair office and dropped off all of the fair's equipment, documents, and records in my possession, including a key to the office. I do regret that I will no longer be serving in the community in this manner, but I find I have no other course of action that I can take. I do not know what the future holds for me in terms of my participation in the fair. I do intend to maintain personal relationships, some of which are lifelong, that have been so meaningful. And so I bid you good night and farewell.
Linda, you're muted. Linda, you're muted.
Thank you. Stephen?
Hi, I just want to say we're in the middle of a member action right now, and the ballots have all gone out. They went out, the last ones went out on the 19th of this month. If anybody who's a registered member hasn't received their ballot, please contact elections@OregonCountryFair.org to get a replacement. They are due on February 18th at 8 p.m. Postmarks don't count. We must have them in hand by then. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. AJ?
Well, that's an interesting start to this meeting. I want to kick it off by saying this. You know, thoughts and prayers are not enough. We should say his name. His name was Tyree Nichols. Yet another Black man killed at the hands of the police. While all of us are ingrained in all of this fighting and all of this stuff, Black men are dying by systematic racism that neither this country or this world is stopping. I want you to look at my face, if you can. I have to fear whether or not I'm going to get home every day. Not because I'm in some oppressive country. It's because I may get pulled over at the wrong time, at the wrong place. Say his name.
Thank you, AJ. I don't have anyone else in the chat. Can we just take 30 seconds silence I want to open up some space for people to process, grieve, whatever your emotions are that you're feeling right now. So I'm just going to give it about 25 seconds. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Stephen, for all the work that you're doing right now. But we do have a business that we need to get to at hand. So unless there's any more announcements, we are going to kick it off with the financial planning committee revenue projections for 2023. And I'm going to turn it over to Hillary. Paxton, I didn't see your name. Did I miss you?
No, I was just on the list to make the initial motion, so.
Oh, okay.
And I'm
Thank
just
you.
wondering if you want that now.
I'm going to
No,
let,
we think that, we thought yeah, I want to do an introduction first, Pax.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, those are big announcements. I want to thank AJ and Lucy for that. AJ, good reminders. I think we've been living with a lot of this, and it's just devastating. And really want to thank Lucy for her years of service and dedication. She stepped in her inventory job at a critical time. And as I've said in many meetings in the past, she brought a lot of energy to close the circle on the reporting. And we really, really appreciate everything she's done for us. So I want to acknowledge that. Also want to acknowledge just what a big lift the budget season has been in general. As for those of you who followed along, we have been changing our processes. Before COVID started and before we went to Zoom, we were still meeting in person, but we were already starting to change and update our spreadsheets and how we were operating. Then we go on to Zoom and become very much electronically based. And as a brainstorming of figuring out how do we allow the budget committee to focus on the questions of the budget and not on the administrative process of putting the paperwork together, we worked with the staff to redesign the system somewhat, and the staff did an amazing job, with a lot of new staff and soliciting the paperwork, assembling the initial budgets and handing it off to the budget committee in a very short amount of time. It allowed the budget committee then to operate with fully constructed budgets. And many, many months ago, sometime last year, Kirsten and Linda and I were kind of brainstorming and saying, wouldn't it be great if we could start the budget season with an idea of the total scale of what's being asked for in relation to the amount of money that we're projecting that we could bring in. And that's what we had this year. And we also, because of the capacity issues that we've been tracking, we also we went into the budget season with an overall idea of what the spending could be to keep us in the black and how many passes we could be out there to stay within the growth limits for the people on property. That's a radical difference from anything that we've done before. And it required that we do things differently. And it's hard, it's hard when you get committees who've done things for in a certain way and been used to a certain information flow and a certain schedule, and working with each other and not having other people in the process. So it's been a rocky adjustment, and I am just really proud of everybody who has stuck with it and worked on it. And I think the results are that we do have a budget that we can be proud of, that it is what we were setting out to do at the beginning. And when we in the financial planning committee, we've looked at a lot of this stuff already in bits and pieces several times over the last 3 months. So forgive me if I'm repeating stuff that, people have already known. But we started with the revenue projection based on the 2022 and agreed not to change the prices, but to build a revenue projection based on what if we actually could sell all the tickets that were in our original 2022 revenue projection. What if we could, meet the people on property numbers, which is a backwards way from what we used to do. It used to be how many more than what we're budgeting for are we going to get? But now we're saying, can we reach those amounts? Because we're not totally positive. It's just such an uncertain time, and fingers crossed that we can. And hopefully with the numbers of people that we're talking about, hopefully we're able to make a safe fair that's fun for the people who are doing the work to make it happen, and that feels like we aren't stretching the capacity of the property and of the crews and of the budget. So that's the hope that we went into this with. And if it turns out that 35,000 people a day on property isn't the right amount, I think we keep on working at it and figure out in the future if it is. But this is a chance to test the 35,000 a day. And we have crews that are scaled about almost exactly as they were last year, but last year not all the positions were filled. So that's the outline of the plan, of the high level planning of the bird's eye view of what we were trying to accomplish with this budget. And I think it will allow us in the future more ability to steer, that we are assembling those numbers in that way, that we're not building the budget from the detail up and then seeing where it lands, but we are trying to look at it as a whole as we're planning it. So the only difference in the revenue is that we went back to the actual numbers that we presented to the board last year, including a small increase to the booth fees. And last year we took off the increase to the booth fees. So there's a difference in the revenue projection of about $30,000. And that's reinstating the price difference on the booths. And if you look on the back of the revenue projection to the prices, you can see the 2000, if you have this sheet, you can see the 2023 and the 2022 prices for the different types of booths and the different types of passes. Yeah, so that's the main thing. On the crew, on the staff and crew budgets, and as we've talked about, the main difference there that makes it hard to compare some of the lines is that we took the rental equipment out of the crew budgets and put it into the event management budget so that they can be managed all together. So we gave a sheet to all the coordinators that showed those decreases and tried to reconcile the prior year supplies and service with the current year supplies and services if it wasn't the same, so that they could be aware of how much came out. And that was not to change their access to that rental equipment, but to change where it's charged and how the overall rental account is managed and that relationship. We have about 6 crew budgets with some items outstanding. And during February, the budget committee will be meeting to work on capital projects, and we'll have to work out some of the final details, including some external security issues, crew services. We have some issues, video crew, there's some outstanding questions, and possibly some day passes and some breakfast service, some coordinator expense, which is contingent on the number of coordinators and the number of crew, and possibly something with communication. So know that there's about 5 crews that I mentioned there, and so the numbers you passed tonight are tentative, and you may get revised numbers in March. They won't be significantly different, but they could be changed a little bit. Okay, so that's the main introduction, and then if Paxton wants to make the revenue motion, then after that, if people want to drill down and talk about individual items or the overall thing, we could go from there. Thanks.
Paxton, you want to make the motion, and then we'll I'll open it up for member input, and then we will do the board input. That's the right way, right?
I move to accept the financial planning recommendations for the 2023 Oregon Country Fair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Should we include the total?
Sure, you could either say as presented, or including the total. Yeah, either way.
As presented, the total the sum total is $3,193,093,817.
Okay, and I got AJ. I heard AJ as the second. Okay, and then I see board members with hands up. So apologies, but do I do the member input or do I do the board? I thought I did the member input first. Can I do that and then come back to the board? Okay, is there anybody who has any member input? I mean, are there any members who have any input? If you do, put your, just type hand into the chat. Okay, Kirsten?
We have a timer program now, so when members speak, I will have a timer that is in my window, so that will count down for the 2 minutes. Okay, just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Wow, fancy pants. Okay. All right, John, go ahead. I don't have any member input, so John, please, you've got the floor.
Well, I actually had my hand up to make a comment in the introductory comments made by Hillary.
Okay.
And then I have a comment about the about the projections. I do appreciate the transition and the work that's been gone into the budget this year, and the changes in the way that it has been or was being developed. However, the materials sent to the board prior to this meeting was a lot less information than previous boards have gotten. The original document that was sent simply listed the proposed 2023 budget. In previous years, we've gotten it's been presented with the 2023 budget, comparison to the last year, and then comparison to, and sometimes comparisons to actuals from the most recent year. A column that listed the changes up or down for each of the items in the budget, and then a column that explained those changes. It was a challenge for me to track all that and find documents which had that stuff in it. And it would have been better, in my view, if that information could be sent as the information going to the board. I don't think, I don't think you can have too much information as a board when you're reviewing a budget. I think you can have too little. And in my view, the initial information that was sent was too little. And I would hope that in the future we can get the information set so that we can compare this year's budget to last year's budget, as well as being able to see what the changes were and some kind of initial explanation for the changes. So that's my general comment. Specific to the revenue projections, the projections that this is based on 35,000 people on site. Just to be clear, this is 35,000 people ages 13 and above on site. That these projections do not count anybody under the age of 13 for who, I want to make sure that that's correct. And second, does anybody have any idea of the number of people on site under the age of 13?
Yeah, it's wristbanded people or people with day passes, and we have not tracked children under. We give wristbands to the preteens, but I'm not aware of any kind of tracking or counting that we do of children.
AJ?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, first, thank you to Hillary. Thank you to Kirsten. I found the documents to be pretty easy to go through and read. And when I had questions, I reached out and asked those questions and got a really frank answer. I think it's important for board members to do their homework and not expect somebody to just give it to you without asking questions. I mean, that's what I did. So thank you for that. And I would also like to address, I think this is the area, a couple things. One is I think the board budget, I think is a little low, specifically the part for trainings. I think it's evident in our
AJ,
current.
we will get to that work. This is just the revenue, the vote on the revenue right now and the
Okay,
prices.
so
Hang on to
just
that.
Yeah.
just to be clear, if we are wanting to ask for a change in it that happened, we're not going to vote.
There'll be a
until
separate
that
motion
happens.
on the board budget, and then
Okay.
during that section is when you could ask for changes.
Perfect, thank you.
I don't have any other hands. Anybody else have any other questions, comments on the revenue projections? Okay, can we take a vote? Can I see hands for a vote yes? And I have Paxton, Sandra, Arna, John Alexander, excuse me, Lisa P, Tom, John, Sue, and AJ, George, and did I say Arna, Kevin? So I think we have that's unanimous. So that passes. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Wait, I miscounted. 12. Okay. And so I assume there's no vote, no votes. John, do you have something?
Yeah, I
missed
actually,
something?
I realize, so by approving the revenue projections, we are approving the income portion of the budget too.
Yes, that's what
Yes.
that is.
Well, then I had a question on the income side of the budget. I know that there was a online donation campaign that was initiated in October. I didn't see any line item in the budget for those types of donations for 2023. And I just wondered, are we going to continue that, the attempt to get donations for the fair other than donations going to Culture Jam? And if that's something that we should have was
John,
deserving of a protection in the budget. So I'm just wondering.
yeah, this is not intending to be directive about whether we're doing fundraising campaigns. And in the past, we typically, our fundraising, has been, it could be anywhere from 20,000 up to about 70 or 80,000. And we've tended not to put it in the budget. So if we have campaigns, and especially if they're successful, it's just on top of what are the more operating and more routine things that we have. So no, this has nothing to do with saying that yes or no, we will do fundraising campaigns. In
Well,
fact, I hope that we do get much more engaged and feel a lot more confident about budgeting for it. But yeah.
well, we included it for Culture Jam. That was the only reason why I asked. I didn't see it included for anything.
Yeah, we
Culture
have very steady funding sources for that, it seems. So that's what we've done there.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the other budgets for 2023. And the first one is the board budget. So would you please, anybody from the members want to?
Let's get a motion, Linda. I think Sandra
right,
and George, we're going to do the
Thank
motions
you. you.
for the spending. Yeah.
Thank you. Sandra, is that you on this one?
I can make either one. Sandra.
George, go for it.
So I move that the board approves the board of directors budget for 2023.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second.
Tom is a second. Okay, now I will open it up for member input. Heather and AJ, I'll come back to you. Heather.
I may have missed it because I came in at 7:06. Is there somewhere where we can see these documents?
Let's see. I think I can share to some extent. It's not on a single.
You know, Heather, if they didn't get up there already, we will get them up there. You know, sorry if they weren't with the link for the meeting.
I'll try to do sharing, but I'm not sure if I can do the facilitation and share. And Norma, did you have your hand up? I thought you did, but then I don't see.
I was wondering what the total was for the minutes, because I'm doing the minutes here, and I thought, do we need to include the total in the minutes?
Yes.
The
Let's see.
motion didn't say what the total was.
Correct. You're right. The total is 2023. The total is $63,800.
Thank you,
No, wait.
but that doesn't sound right.
I think it's wait a minute.
Oh, maybe it is 53,000.
I'm sorry. Did you say 63,800? I'm sorry.
I did.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
63. Oh, I'm sorry. Good. I'm glad you asked, because I thought I heard 53. So thank you for that.
Yes, 63,800. Okay, AJ.
Yeah, so I reached out to Hillary today and kind of spoke about this idea that I had, and I reached out to Tom. I didn't really get a chance to chat much about it, but I think the board as a whole did not, over the last 2 years, did not fulfill our responsibility to do the amount of training that I think is necessary to be a board member of this organization, especially during this time. And so what I am proposing is that we increase the training budget part of this. Right now, it currently is sitting at 10,000. I like that to be 20,000. And I think for that extra $10,000, I'd like to see us really invest in using more consultants to help us with our trainings, and also that we actually are meeting as a group and actually doing trainings. I have not, over the last couple of years, I don't even remember having more than 2 or 3 trainings over that time. And I think we are in need of far more than that. And so that's my proposal.
Hillary?
Yeah, just to give kind of an overview, the board budget is where some of the big philanthropic programs that we have are. The endowment giving is here, the Jill Hyman Vision Fund is here, and in the budget you don't see you only see the match portion. It's also where the board donations is, and we did not fund that pending the subcommittee or task force that's working on creating the protocols for the board donations. So that's typically in recent years been funded at about 25,000. And the recommendations that the task force were working with was a summary that Liz, I can't remember, Liz Fields had given us, of things like creating it more like a program, more like the endowment, or more like the Jill Hyman Vision Fund, that actually has a giving committee that collects and evaluates applicants and might have a theme, creates a program that they interact with the donees and, make sure that they get reports back, to create more of a system and take the public ask and refusal and awards that happened spontaneously in the past, put it into a more coherent system. So that's why it's not present here, because that's not done. But I am hopeful that when that task force gets done, that the board will reinstate the board giving line item. There's a lot of local nonprofits and regional nonprofits that have really benefited from the kind of giving that the fair has done through that program. And then other things are training. And last year, the DEI trainings that came through the committee were in this budget, and the only DEI trainings that we have funded for the current year are in the general management budget. We also had some strategic planning that we never got around to, or didn't find, just never, actually initiated going through with it. It seemed like we had a lot to do. And that's another thing that, I really support us using professionals to help us be a better organization, and to learn to do governance better, and to figure out how we deal with all this conflict and get past, some of the dysfunctional stuff that we've had. And this is the budget where that would come out of the trainings, and the consultants, typically come out of this budget. So that's it.
Grumpy? Grumpy's a member of the budget committee.
Yes, as you all hopefully know, I'm not only a backup manager, but I'm also on the budget committee and used to be a co-treasurer. I think the $10,000 for the donation, for the training is plenty. Hopefully, if somebody comes up with trainings that need more money, the board can look at that in specifics and change the budget in the future. But this is enough for now. And I hopefully, whenever anybody's looking at trainings, you will look at, or we will all look at, volunteers first. One of the things about the DEI trainings, I was hopeful that, and I believe we probably do have volunteers that are willing to give that, and spending a lot of money when we could use volunteers to do whatever trainings we need, because we have a lot of professionals who are volunteers, and I hope that we can use volunteers for training. And so I think $10,000 is
more than enough. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to point out to everybody that Vanessa has in the chat. Vanessa has put the link to the documents that are posted online. So if you haven't seen that, please go to that link. Arna, you're up next.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick questions about the endowment. So the line item here for the endowment is money that we are giving from the endowment to different agencies. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Have we put more money into the endowment?
The endowment right now is at the Oregon Community Foundation, and it's been generating in recent years about $25,000 that they distribute to us, and we hold in a bank account that is then used for the giving program. Before 5 years ago or so, interest rates were so low and we had it in CDs and we were constantly subsidizing it. There just wasn't enough earnings to be able to generate it. And it's probably been 8 to 10 years since we've added to the principal, but the principal is growing because it's at the Oregon Community Foundation. And, you know, it does fluctuate with the stock market, but it has been going up. So, you know, it seemed like it's going to keep on growing, hopefully, and that we haven't added to it. It's the board's option if they want to add to it. But, you know, when we put it at the Oregon Community Foundation, it's definitely out of reach. It's a designated endowment. It's not a true endowment that's donor given. So the board does have some leeway, except that we made the choice to put it at the Oregon Community Foundation. And so we have a beneficial interest in it at this point.
Okay. And you're only suggesting at this point to give $15,000 away, even though we may be making more off of it.
The other money is sitting in a bank account if we wanted to give it all away and hope that every year we'll keep getting 25,000 distributed. That would be fine. You know, we could give away more and then just kind of wait and see what happens.
Okay.
There's nothing else we can use that money for, basically. So and there is some money sitting there in the bank.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Arna. John Silverman, you're up.
So I'm a little confused by the documents that I have been sent. When I reviewed the initial budget document that was sent last week, I emailed requesting if we could be sent a comparison, this year's budget to last year's budget with the differences. That was sent this morning. That has under board training DEI $0 budgeted for 2023. And the budget that was sent last week, the single page without the single column without any comparisons has 10,000. So does the current budget have $10,000 for board training DEI is my first question. And then I have additional questions or comments to make once I get an answer to that.
So I'm looking at the comparison budget, John, and I see it showing as $10,000 for 2023.
The header of that first column says 2022 budget. The next column says 2023 budget.
Yeah.
Mine shows 10,000 in the first column and nothing in the second column.
That's interesting because mine shows 10,000 in the second column, and then there's a third column that's a difference.
And mine says minus 10,000. So was I sent the wrong version today? I'm confused based on what I've been looking at.
I don't have a budget that shows 10,000 DEI out of the board budget. The only DEI I see is in the GM budget. And Kirsten and Norma have worked more, took the information that was in the Google Drive and put it into the software. And if they have any insights on that, that would be helpful.
wait, so there's board training and there's board training DEI. Those are two different things. Okay, I see that. So there is no money in the current proposed budget for DEI training for the board. And there's
Unless it was
$10,000
out
for
of
board training.
the general management budget.
Okay.
The training can be used for,
May I speak?
general board training can be used for DEI.
I know that's your justification. We have a structure now that the board deals with governance and management deals with operations. And I realize there's some overlap there. Having money in the board budget is what the board can use for those governance kinds of issues that they want, which I think board training is. I think it would be useful to track how much is spent on governance type trainings and how much is spent on operations type training. I would like to see DEI back in the board budget here and kept separate from the general manager budget. There's two individuals, so and I do know that I agree with AJ that there's a need for it. So I would like to move to add $10,000 to the 2023 board budget under the line item 5039 board training DEI.
Is there
Second.
okay. And so AJ seconded. So can I see a show of hands for making that change to add $10,000 to the board budget for DEI training?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I thought, AJ, that the $10,000 you were asking for was for board training for the board in different, on how to, basically be a better board. Or were you intending to put it in as DEI training? Or just training in general for whatever we thought was necessary?
Can I answer that?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say that there's already a $10,000 line item there. My idea of adding $10,000 was because my thought process was that the majority of that would go to helping us with DEI consultants of our choosing to help us get through and start to develop a process in how we want to go forward with DEI. So that was my thought process, and adding another $10,000. I don't think just $10,000 for training was enough, or is even close to enough to address both, the board part of just being an organization, structure and teaching that sort of thing in nonprofit education, and DEI. It just is not enough. And I think we've gone really cheap on a huge problem that we have in this organization with DEI. And it's evident in where we are right now. And I think we should invest. And it starts from the top. The board needs some education with DEI as a whole. We need to know how we address this from the top, and it's going to cost a little bit.
Okay, so I think I honestly, I'm not super sure how all this works. I'm not a trained facilitator. So I'm going to go through the names that are in the chat, and then we'll come back to the vote on the adding the $10,000 to the DEI training. I think that's the way to do it. Kirsten?
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, I just wanted to note that in the spreadsheet for the budget request form, under 5039 board DEI training. The note read, this can always be budget adjusted if there's something the board finds valuable. So it was not budgeted in a first pass by the previous board president before she left. And so she made a note that, this could be something that the board wanted to budget for. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Grumpy?
Sorry, it took me a second to get back on. I'm going to repeat not much, but hopefully you think about what I already said. I think whether it's DEI or regular board training, we should be doing it by volunteers if at all possible. And I'm just guessing that whatever training we actually get, whether it's volunteer or we pay, and people have to be trained and follow what the training is, not just use the fair's money for the training. And I think that's been a deficit in the past.
Arna, you're up next.
I'll pass, Linda.
Okay, thank you. John Alexander?
Yeah, thanks. I'm kind of assuming that John S's friendly amendment takes care of AJ's recommendation, but I'm not sure. We'll come back to that. I just want to acknowledge that this board budget, benefits us as a board. And I want to make sure that we take the faith that the membership has given us in electing us to the board and make sure that we benefit the membership and we benefit the organization. And as the new liaison with Tom to the diversity committee, I am committed to taking on the responsibility as a board to getting things back on track with regards to that as soon as absolutely possible. And I just want to acknowledge that we came out of our retreat with a lot of momentum, and the membership felt, us being a little bit more united, and we've might have taken a couple steps back. And I just want us to recommit ourselves to what we came out of that retreat showing the membership, and make sure that we focus any of these dollars that are spent on us, on our roles of representing and leading our membership, and showing our membership a different way forward than the past. And I just want to acknowledge that that's the intention of this if we do this, and that I'm committed, and I know Tom's committed as the liaison to that committee, to setting things right and taking responsibility as a board to making sure we set things right for a board committee.
Thank you. Hillary?
Yeah, I support this. But to be clear, money that's been in the board budget hasn't always been spent on the board. A lot of times it is spent on the entire membership, or it's the community outreach money as well. And I really disagree with Grumpy. I think the board has, when the fair has found good consultants, we've really been able to benefit from it. And I think we need those outside eyes that can come in and work with us and help us get to a different place.
Thank you. John Silvermoon?
I agree partially with Grumpy that there may be some things that volunteers in the fair have the skills to do training. I definitely think that because as an organization, we've got to such a polarizing place around issues of DEI, that it would be best to have an outside consultant come in and help us work through that, so that it's not somebody that in any way can be identified with any viewpoint that's already been expressed within the organization. That's why I think it's important to have an outside person or consultant to help us with that.
Thank you. Paxton, you're up.
I agree with John on that. I think there are really good people out there, and every time we've had training, I have benefited from it. So I really believe in paying for good training. I think it's really smart and it would really help us. Thank you.
Arna, you're up.
I guess I will speak this time. I guess I'd like to see these two line items combined as one big training budget that would include both DEI training and other board training. So that the board can decide. I mean, I actually think the board needs a lot of training, both in DEI and in how to work as a board. So I just like to see it to combine that so that we just have one budget pool to draw from and we can decide where we want to put it. And DEI training is definitely in there, but I don't like splitting it up that way.
Thank you, George.
Well, I think that the board has some work to do in figuring out exactly what it is we want from these consultants. I think that if we can come to agreement as to what sort of DEI trainings and so forth are going to benefit us, and look at other organizations and see what's out there and see what the kind of the better strategies are, and then do some requests for proposals and have some degree of competition, where people vision how they could help us achieve these goals. But just hiring a consultant to necessarily tell us what to do, when in some ways we may not totally have a clear vision of that ourselves. And I'm not sure, I'm a little confused as to what our overarching goals are. And if we can sort of codify those and put it together in a way saying, look, this is what we're after. Is this something you can do? Have you done this before? Let's talk about that. I think just putting money out there, necessarily saying that's going to solve the problem, $10,000 may or may not. But I just think we need a little bit more clarity on what it is we want out of this thing.
AJ?
Yeah. So as somebody that's been in the trenches with this, I've done some research. And so that $10,000 that didn't just come out of the blue. That I will make that comment first. And then the second comment I would make is that if we knew what we wanted, we would have been doing it. If we knew, we're at a loss here. And I think, when you do the research on organizations and businesses that have met organizations like ours where we are and turned it around, there are a few out there, but it is upwards of that for the total training. It's even more than that 10,000, but you can get it around that amount of money. I'd like us to see, I want that line item there for this, because, if we really, as the leadership of this organization, if we all really take a step back and look at how we have engaged our community, engaged with each other over the past 3-4 years, even more than that, but specifically 3 or 4 years, we have not done ourselves any good when it comes to this specific issue. And we have got to do better. And we have to also recognize when we don't have the answers, which we don't have the answers, we need help. We're not going to get through this just kicking the can down the path. We need help. And I am I never use what most people will say. I'm not even going to say it, but I'm going to say this. For the Black and Brown and marginalized community in our organization, one of the things that I've never debated, and I full-heartedly agree, is if we are to be an anti-racist organization at any point in the future, we have to put money, when we have it, we have to put it in the right place. This is the right time and the right place to put our money where our mouths are.
Paxton,
I think what we're doing here is voting on adding $10,000 to the training budget to make it a $20,000 budget. I don't think we're actually saying where it will get spent. I really appreciate the research that AJ's done. And if it costs more than $10,000, then there's $20,000 in their sense to work with. I think all training is valuable, and I'm really happy to increase the training budget to $20,000. Thank you.
so John, you made the motion. Do you want to clarify that?
This is to put it to the line item 5039, training DEI. That is where it's been previously. That is different than the line item 50, whatever, sorry, I don't remember the number, 5078, board training. It is a separate line item. It is a line item specific to DEI training. So that is the motion, and as I understand it, that is exactly what AJ would like to have happen also.
My apologies for being confused.
No, that's fine.
AJ, did you want to confirm that, or?
Yeah, I have one final thing that for me, I agree. I think this is going in the right direction. But let me be clear. This money is for the board to decide. The board, this is the board for the board. This is not for committees or anybody to tell the board what to do. This is for us as a board, as a leadership of this organization, to get the help that we need so we can be leaders to the rest of our organization. I don't want to get this confused with what we've done in the past where we've told committee or whatever to tell us how to use the money that we have for this. This is up to, I've spoken with our board president. I think we have competent people that can do research on the board to make sure that this money is spent well and that it goes to benefit the board, which then benefits the whole organization, going back to what John Alexander said.
John Silverman, you had something else?
I partially agree with that assessment of AJ, who seconded the motion that this is for the board. But I do not think this precludes that whatever this money is being used for, that it might not involve bringing other relevant parties into a discussion with the board if that helps further the board trying to figure out how to move forward. So it is the board's decision how to use this money, but how it's used in terms of addressing the DEI issue and how we move forward. I would not say that it precludes involvement of anybody who's not a board member in that process. Obviously, we need to put together a proposal, and I'm sure that Tom, as board president, would be involved in doing that. So that's my understanding of how that line item has been used in the past. But it is the board to determine how to use it. Yes.
Okay, so I don't have any other names, so we'll go ahead and vote. So we're voting on the motion of whether to add $10,000 to the board budget line item for training / DEI. Can I see hands for those who are voting yes on this? Paxton, Sandra, Kevin, John Alexander, Lisa, Tom, John Silverman, George, Sue, Ann, and AJ. So that is 11. And vote, anyone who votes any no votes for this? Arna, anybody else, any abstaining? Okay, the motion passes to add the 10,000 to that line item. So I guess now we need to still pass the overall board budget, but it's a different total now. George, can you do your,
Now it's 73,800,
okay,
73,800.
73,800. Can you amend the, John, am I doing this wrong?
Well, I mean, I have other items in the board budget I'd like to address before we vote on the final board budget. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, all right. So, but let's, I think we need to amend the total though for the overall budget. I guess I could wait till the end and see if there's any other changes. That's a
That
great
would-
idea.
That'd
Okay,
be my
let's do that.
suggestion.
Okay, good idea. All right. Hands for any other comments? John, is that your hand for a different?
Yes, that is.
All right, you've got the
So
floor.
the change line item has been used in the past for the board to support change in the larger world. In the past, some of that money, we've allocated money to Standing Rock, the attempt to stop the Keystone Pipeline across with the Standing Rock Reservation in South Dakota. That's where money that has been given, the first time we gave money to Piccoon, that's where some of that money came from. And when there have been ballot measures on the ballot, as a nonprofit, we're not allowed to give money to candidates, but we can give money to ballot measures that's been used for ballot measures. That was zeroed out because of COVID. And now that we're recovering from COVID, I'd like to see some money put into that. And I would like to move that we add 20,000 to that line item, but that money not be made available until after the fair so that we have seen, make sure we've had a successful fair before we make any decisions to spend any of that money. So-
Okay, is there a second for that motion? Sue? Any discussion?
Can we clearly say the motion again? What's the motion?
So that we are adding $20,000 to the change line item, but that money not be released for use by it's a board decision until after the 2023 fair to ensure that we have had a successful fair.
Okay, Paxton?
Sorry, I muted myself. Is there a line number to that, or are we going back and just re-adding the change line item to the board budget? I'm fully in favor of it because the change line item has
50-41.
really helped us in the past influence things in the rest of the world that interest our membership. So I really appreciate having that line item there. I mean, it's obey the law, change the law is where it came from, and I think we need to continue to support it. Thank you.
It is a line item, I think it's 5041. Sandra?
Yes, this is still a very much a transition year. We need another year or two of good fairs to be stable again. And I think the profit margin on this year's fair is pretty slim. And adding 10 here, 20 there, I think it's all real money and it adds up. And if there is something that comes up and that we really feel motivated to support and we feel like we've had enough success in the fair that it seems reasonable, we can always do a budget adjustment and pay for it in that way. So I really think that this is, I don't think this is a good idea to do this now under these circumstances. We have to stabilize ourselves first, and we're not there yet.
Thank you, Sandra. John Alexander, I think you are next.
Great, thank you very much. So, moving out of the retreat and through several budget information sessions that we've had and into this presentation, I want to again thank the treasurers for the work they do and the presentation of these numbers. And I want to, when we continue kind of to Sandra's question, the philanthropic work that we do, it's key and it's a priority, but I think slowly heading into it is a wise thing to do. So without as much knowledge from year to year about how budgets fluctuate and things like that, I would like to ask, if this is appropriate, and if y'all don't want to go there, the treasurers about the risk involved with the margin and how comfortable they are with us continuing to add expense items into the budget, and whether that's increasing our risk or our risk margins can handle this kind of thing.
Well, it's always a trade-off if you spend something on one thing and not on another, and these budgets are the operating budgets, and we still haven't done the capital projects, which could easily be another 100,000. So when you look at the bottom line, remember that. And it's the uncertainty that we have, it's trade-offs and uncertainty that we're dealing with. What will the environment be like when the fair comes around? Will we sell the tickets? Will we be able to fully staff and sell our SOs and sell all of our booth spaces? If we meet this budget, I think we're in a pretty solid space. And it's just, we don't know yet. We also, another thing we have outstanding is that $25,000 of the board giving. So, potentially this is potentially 2 items that could come on later in the year. If we have a good year, we could be looking at increasing the total board budget by 45,000. And that's certainly a scale that we have been at in the past, and it might be totally reasonable. And it's also something that you could add after the fair. You don't have to add it now.
So can I follow up
the way we
on that
treat a
answer?
lot of our budget, especially with the cruise, is that the budget is the authorization to spend. So it's, it's just adding a contingency if you add it now and say, but it's not till after the fair. But the board has the prerogative of changing the budget at any meeting that it has too. So, I support the cause, and I think that the work we do in the community is just so important, but there's a lot of uncertainty.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Can I follow up with that question, that answer then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess sometimes we get into these situations where we're amending motions and we're doing these other things, and then we're going to go to other expenses. And are we going to continue to do that when we start to about capital expenses and other kind of things? So I want to make sure we structure our decision making in a way that we're not making decisions now that in 20 minutes we're going to be talking about other additions that like Hillary said, you might not, if you add this here, can you add that there? So I really like the way John phrased that this would be something we would do after we knew we made budgets. And I really appreciate that. But I just am feeling like we get ahead of ourselves sometimes in our decision-making processes because we've got other decisions to make that this might have consequences for. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. John S.
So one reason why I'd like to have something in this line item in the budget, because it talks about intent of the fair, that this is something that we want to start doing again. We have had people approach us with requests for ballot measures and things in the past, and having this in the budget is a sign of intent that we intend on doing that. If the amount concerns people, I'm fine for decreasing that to, something less than 20,000. But I think it's important to have something there so that it's a kind of statement of the intent of the board to start doing this again. I fully understand why the board giving line items not there, because we're in a process of reevaluating how we're doing that. But I like the statement of intent. If it would get you, John, or you, Sandra, to vote in favor of this if it were a lower amount. I'm fine for decreasing the amount if that's okay with my second. Yeah. I mean, if in fact, if it's okay with my second, how about if we decrease that to 10,000?
Okay, Sue is showing she's got a thumbs up, so the amendment, the motion has been changed to 10,000 instead of 20. Oh, hand down. Okay, anybody else? Okay, oh, Sue?
I just want to make sure that it's out there to demonstrate our intention to continue. Thank you.
Anyone else? And I have a little bit of a lag, so I'll give it just a second. Paxton.
I was gonna do it as a friendly amendment, but I'm glad he just made it. I think 10,000 is more reasonable to reserve that. And I expect after the fair, we may very well find needs show up. Thank you.
Sandra?
Did I freeze up here?
You're, I think so, because it looks like you're on mute, but you're talking, so. Can you hear us?
She is frozen on my screen.
Okay, does anybody else have, we'll come back to you, Sandra. Arna?
I understand wanting to show intent, and I'm a firm believer in the fair giving back to the larger community. That's why I helped found the Vision Fund. I think it's really important that we do that. I'm just not sure this is the right thing to be doing right now. If we're not talking about releasing the money until after the fair, and it's dependent upon whether we have the money after the fair, I'm not sure why we're putting it in the budget now. Why can't we just revisit this after the fair? And at that point, look at whether we have the money and then put it out. We can add it to the budget then. I'm not sure. I'm uncomfortable with adding, as John says, this is just the second budget or the first budget we're looking at. And here we are, adding money after money. And we haven't even gotten to the other budgets yet. And it's 8:15 too. So I'm not comfortable with just adding $10,000 chunks places. As Hillary says, we haven't done that capital improvements. She doesn't even have that in. We might not have as good a fair. Why don't we just wait on this till after the fair and make a note that this needs to come back to be looked at after the fair, and that if we have the money then we fund it.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, those are all the hands I have. I don't see Sandra back on yet. So we'll go ahead and vote on this one. John, Alexandra, are you trying to?
I was trying to hand. Yeah, I couldn't find my chat. I really appreciate all this discussion. I'm wondering whether if we just friendly amended it, that it would be spent through a board motion, then we could consider the intent there, which I think Paxton and John wanted to see the intent in the budget, but that would still require a board motion when to be spent. So that kind of gets Arna going, gets to Arna's piece too.
John, you're on mute. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, it would require a board motion to spend it, because you'd have to decide how you want to spend it. So if there's a particular ballot measure, what's happened in the past, there's been a particular ballot measure or Standing Rock, and someone makes a motion to spend X amount of dollars from the change line item for that particular purpose. So this will require a board motion for any of this money to be spent. It's not something that Tom, as as president of the fair, has authority to spend it on whatever he feels is appropriate. This would require a board motion to vote to spend any of it. So I think the protections are there, you know, and by saying we're not even going to consider a board motion until after the fair, in essence, but anyway, it doesn't require a board motion, John.
Grumpy?
I'm not sure that's accurate, John. I think once it's in the budget, it can be spent. So I think John's, Alexander's potential amendment is an important thing to put in here.
So that would require John Silvermoon to,
Well, I'm unclear what John's amendment is supposed to be going to be.
John, go ahead, yeah, Alexander.
Can somebody read the motion and then I will amend it or make a recommendation?
The motion is to add $10,000 to the board change line item, and that money not be considered for use until after the 2023 fair.
So you would add and directed via a board motion, right to the end of it.
Sure, that's fine, because that has been the practice, that has been the procedure. This money's never been spent without a board motion for all the years that it's been in the line item. If we need to add that specifically to get the votes, that's fine. But it's just adding something that's already there. I disagree with Grumpy because there's no one here that could decide willy-nilly how to spend that. But that's fine with me, subject to a board vote. I'm fine for adding that at the end of the motion.
Okay, and Sue as the second has given the thumbs up for that. Can we call, I'm going to call the vote on this one. So voting to add $10,000 to the change line item with those contingencies outlined. Can I see hands for yes on that? Okay, Paxton, Lisa, Kevin, John Alexander, John Silvermoon, George, AJ, Sue, and Ann. So that is 8 yeses and no. Who's voting no on this particular one? Arna, Tom Horn, Sandra. So that's 3 no's. Is there someone, did I miss somebody? Is there anybody abstaining? I missed somebody, I'm sorry. Who are the no's again? Sandra, Arna, and Tom. I must have missed a yes. So there's 9 yeses then. Okay, so that passes. So our new total is 83,800 for the board budget. Is there anybody else have any other changes? Okay, so we're ready to, now we need to amend the motion, the original motion, the amount of the original motion. And George, I think that was your motion. So the total is now 83,800. Do you want to, are you talking, George? Because if you are, you're on mute.
I was talking. I'm sorry. The motion to read, the board moves to approve the board of directors 2023 budget in the amount of $83,800.
Okay, and then the second was Tom. Okay, you're still okay with that, Tom? Okay, all right. So can I get yeses on the board budget? Paxton, Arna, Lisa, Kevin, John Alexander, Tom, John Silvermoon, George, AJ, Sandra, Sue, and Ann. So it looks like we have 12 votes yes, so that passes. And no vote. All right, thanks, everybody. If it's any consolation to you at all, from my experience in the past many years, the board budget always takes the longest, interestingly enough. All right, next topic or next item up is the crew budget. And would somebody do the crew budget? Who's got that one?
That would be me. Yeah, that would be me.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, yes. The board moves to approve the 2023 crew budgets in the sum of $1,046,519 as presented.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Paxton seconds. And any member input? If you would like to make a comment, if you can put your hand, type the word hand in the chat. Anybody from the membership? Okay, I don't see any hands, so I will be taking board input. And John, go ahead.
I had a couple of questions that I was just curious about that I couldn't figure out. The childcare budget, I know that we stopped providing childcare to the public before COVID. Does this budget that we're approving anticipate restoring that, or is that still up in the air?
It's changing a little bit at Wally's Way, and they're adding some more services and some more check-in ability. I see Johnny there. I think it's going to be a mix of figuring out, how much staff actually comes. That's part of the factor. And I believe that the Sesame Street childcare will operate as it has, and that Wally Way, will add more services that are custodial especially in order to accommodate lost children at that end. But I'm not positive about all the check-in. I think childcare is trying to readapt and get back to previous operations as much as possible, while also incorporating the benefits they saw from more occupying all of Wally's Way and being more interactive.
Okay.
I'm going to call on Johnny, who put their name up in the hat and in the chat, to give a direct to John. Johnny, do you want to respond?
Sure, yeah, thanks. Hillary's correct all around. That's totally accurate. We're gonna do the checked in kind of prior to COVID childcare model at Sesame Street, and then use, like Hillary said, a lot of the cool lessons we learned in Wally's Way to kind of flesh out that loop a little bit. And whether or not there's checked in childcare there is an open question. And then we're also working with path planning to define some space on the south end somewhere. So that's a quick overview of the whole scope of the operation. But to answer John's questions directly, yes, there is checked in childcare a la pre-COVID times. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's good to hear. The other question I had deals with the main stage budget, which increases 27,750, which seemed like a fairly significant increase. And I wondered what that increase was for.
There's two components to that. One is the sound engineer contract that they have is going up, and I believe that's about 10,000. There are actually some decreases in there for rental equipment that you can't see. And then the increase for performer contracts is somewhere in the neighborhood of about, it's over 20,000, somewhere between 20 and 25,000. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the bulk of it is for performer contracts.
And correct. I guess to understand the increase in performance contract, is that because we are compared to last year, for instance, which is kind of coming out of COVID, that some more national acts or well-known, however you want to say, expensive acts chose not to come last year, or we didn't, or because of COVID, we didn't bother reaching out to them, and now we're bringing
No,
them back in.
the case they made, John, was not in relation to last year. It was showing like a typical day schedule and the pay scale that they were aspiring to. And, you know, kind of more local and regional acts earlier in the day, and then trying to have larger, more expensive acts later in the day. I don't remember so much of a reference to national acts or regional acts, but, you know, the price levels that they were trying to hit. And it seemed very reasonable, and they haven't been able to hit those price levels with the amount of money they had. You know, main stage operates on a shoestring compared to a lot of similar type main stage operations. And we put a lot of money into entertainment and a lot of effort into entertainment, but we have so many entertainers and so many stages. And this was an effort to meet the ongoing request of main stage to have more ability to hire the acts that they aspire to.
Yeah, and just so folks know, potential conflict of interest. I have a band. We performed at the fair, I believe, in 2002. Haven't performed since then, but I didn't see any increases in any of the entertainment budgets for this. I would hope that if what we're trying to do is pay our entertainers, that would also include people at spoken word and vaudeville, that the desire to pay people enough to live on, I think applies across the board. I'm not going to object to this, but it stood out to me that it was main stage increasing and none of the others increased for that reason. And I would hope that we're all taking a serious look at that.
You know, John, it's hard to see some of the other increases because of the rental equipment being taken out.
Oh,
There
okay.
were some increases, none nearly as significant. You know, vaudeville in particular, under Ben, spent about 5 years with a sustained effort to meet equity and payment goals. So they aren't currently working on that, but they did a lot of increases and a lot of studies of the composition of their groups, the gender composition, the size composition. And so they aren't feeling that same kind of pinch. So the emphasis is really on main stage right now to try to get them to a place that they're more comfortable.
Okay,
But
thank
there
you.
were some other increases, but not nearly as large.
And then under the crew office town, it looks like that decreased significantly from last year. And I just wondered where that money ended up going to in the budget.
It didn't go anywhere. That was the postage and printing for the Fair Family News, which have been doing electronically.
Okay, so, okay, that's fine. I just wondered because that was a big drop. And if you just hold on a second, I'm just going through all my pages to make sure I don't have anything else that I won't make the motion this year, but in previous years, I have voted to defund fish ladders, and I would do that if I actually thought it could pass, but I won't do it tonight. Just so you know. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It's 8:30 and we've only got, we have 6
Appreciate it.
budgets still.
Okay, AJ.
My only question was that the crew budgets, was there a discussion about these budgets being formed with the understanding that the crews would be working with a fully staffed crew? I know we have some another event happening during the same time of our event this year. And I wondered if there was any consideration, I brought this up last time we spoke, if there was any consideration of possible decreases in staff and what that might do to the crew budgets.
The crew budgets weren't decreased, anticipating that possibility. I'm not sure that we have the information that would lead us to make concrete plans, around that right now. You know, they
Is there-
were staffed with the idea that how much do you need to do your function, and, you know, how can we, you know, adjust our crews to what seems possible for this year, what we can afford, and without being expansive this year. So we definitely are not trying to be expansive and add new functions and things like that, but nor did we say, well, we assume 10% of the people are going to be in the gorge and we're going to cut the crews. We did not do that.
Yeah, I guess my question is more around, are we going from the staff, the staffing from last year, or was there a discussion with the crews about what kind of budget did they see? Was it a budget based on 2019 staffing, or
This is close to 2018 staffing.
Okay,
Crews were not cut for 2022. And actually, many crews filled most of their positions. They just didn't sell all their SO passes. We think it's possible that people moved from an SO position into a crew position, which was open because some people didn't come fill them. We did not cut crews saying you only used 10 crew positions out of 12, so you can only have 10 this year. We did not do that.
Yeah, I think you answered my question. I was just saying where it was based off of. Thank you for that answer.
Okay, I don't have any other hands in the chat. So we will go ahead and vote on this one. Can I see who votes yes on this motion? Okay, Paxton, Arna, excuse me, Lisa, Kevin, John, Alexander, Tom, John, Silverman, George, AJ, Sandra, Sue, and Anne. That is 12 votes yes. The motion passes. Thank you all very much. Okay, the next budget up is the Culture Jam budget. And would someone like to make a motion for that one? Who's got that one?
I think that's yours, George.
I make a motion to approve the 2023 Culture Jam budget.
That's $82,900.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, George made the motion, AJ seconds it. Any member input on this? I don't see any names in the chat. Any board member input? Okay, fantastic. I'm just going to call the vote then on this one. No, wait, did I miss something? Oh, Lisa P. I must have a lag. I have to give more time.
Yeah, I think maybe. I know it's getting late and we have a lot more business to do, but I was just wondering if you could explain the increase of $24,000. I see that there's a management contract that was added in.
If you remember, Robin is transitioning out. She's going to help train the new person, and that management contract is, you know, primarily for Robin's services to help us transition.
Got it. Thank you.
Anybody else? I missed someone else. No. Okay, all right, thank you. Who are the yes votes on this motion? Okay, Paxton, Arna, Lisa, Kevin, John, Tom, John, okay, George, AJ, Sandra, Sue, and Anne. All right, 12 votes yes, that motion passes. Thanks, everybody. Okay, the next one up is the office management budget.
Okay, I have that one. So I move that the board approve the 2023 office management budget in the amount of $70,700.
Second.
Who was that? Was that Paxton?
Paxton.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, any member input? All right, board member input. John?
No, there's a $25,000, $850 increase in credit card fees. Is that coming from elsewhere in the budget and being removed here or?
No, what that is starting last year, registration accepted credit card fees for the payment of booth fees. And for them, it took about $11,000 in fees to pay the fees that we incurred on those fees. And the hope is that this year we have some electronic payment capability on the staff side. And so it's anticipating that we'll have a similar level of fees, and it's putting them both in there. We didn't have them budgeted for last year. We did not, registration showed a lot of initiative in innovating their system, but we didn't have a warning about those fees last year.
Thank you.
Any other hands? Okay, let's vote. Who votes yes to approve this motion? Paxa, Arnon, Melissa, Kevin, John, Tom, John, George, AJ, Sandra, Sue, and Ann. Okay, that's 12 yeses. Motion passes. Thank you. The next budget is the site and facilities budget. George?
Yep, I'll take that one. I move that the board accept the site and facilities budget for 2023 and the amount of, Hillary, can you give me that?
It is $333,500.
$332,500.
333,000, 333, comma 500.
All right.
I'll second.
AJ seconds. Thank you. Member input. No member input, any board input? John?
Yeah, I've just a couple questions. Is there anything in this budget for the site manager to start planning for the Emerald Ash Borer, or is that going to more like be a capital project or something that will come to us eventually?
Sierra, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I think that's something that will come eventually. When we spoke with Oregon Department of Agriculture, they talked about this year, they anticipate that some funding will start to be available that we could potentially apply for. And we're still in the process of developing our long-term planning. So we do have a task force that's dedicated to this, the discussion of the topic. However, at this time, we do not have any financial plans dedicated to it.
Thank you. That's what I figured. I just want to confirm. And then I noticed outhouses decreased 25,000, which seemed I just wonder because if anything, there was a dearth of those at the fair last year for sure, and that's been one of the constant things that people have been speaking to. And I just wondered why that's decreasing 25,000.
It was my understanding that we actually came in a little bit under budget for that item this year, even though we upped the number of units that we had this year. The issue wasn't so much that we didn't have enough units. It was that I think our contractors and everyone was just struggling with employment of employees and having the appropriate workforce to service them on the schedule that we had agreed upon. So we are in talks this year, and hopefully we'll be able to negotiate a price that fits our budget and also assures us that we will get the service that we pay for.
Yeah, and Kirsten might be able to help with this too. Last year, this budget contained not only the outhouses, it contained a lot of what we were doing for COVID response as well. That wasn't strictly contracting with Best Pots. And I think some of that is not in there. The outhouse contract, to my memory, used to be closer to 150,000 before last year.
Correct, Hillary. We do expect a price increase as our 5-year contract with Honey Buckets expired in 2022. So we are currently negotiating a new 5-year contract. We do expect to see an increase in the per unit cost, but we had padded the budget last year by $50,000 to accommodate PPE. And we aren't going to need as much as we still have some on hand. We will have PPE, but we don't need to buy as much as we bought last year because we still have some on hand. Thank you.
And my last comment related to that item, the board a number of years ago passed a motion that the provision of services such as the outhouses for the non-public times and parts of the fair should be at the same standards as ADA requires for the public part of the fair. And I hope that we can achieve that that objective with what's budgeted. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any other hands in the chat. Am I missing anybody? Okay, we'll vote on this one then. Who vote? Let's do yes votes for this motion. Paxton, Arna, Lisa, Kevin, John, Tom, John, George, AJ, Sandra, Sue, and Anne. That vote passes 12-0. Thank you, everyone. The next one is the event management budget.
Okay, I take that one there.
Okay, great.
The board moves to approve the 2023 event manager budget in the amount of $425,675.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paxton. Any member input? I don't see any member input. So we'll move to board input. Sue, go ahead. And you're on mute.
Sorry, there was a pop-up that kept showing up in front of mute. I'm sorry, I really should know the answer to this, having sat in on all the meetings. I'm not sure this is the right part to ask the question, but is there funding available for late night trips this year? Thank you.
Kirsten, Hillary, anybody, do you know?
My memory is that the person who was doing it doesn't want to do it anymore.
I'll take this one. Yeah, so we are in conversations with the gentleman who does it. He doesn't want to do it. He is doing a call out for volunteers. So we are hopeful that we will get that. It will be under our trade contracts, and any funding would come out of some of our contingency funds, like our miscellaneous account. So we can find room for that, but we didn't budget for it because at the time we didn't know if it was happening, but we are making progress, and we hope to find some volunteers to pick up and carry this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I know people would love to have it back. I'm one of them.
John S.
Yeah, I actually have a bus related question also. I noticed that what's budgeted for buses is a decrease of $5,000. I know historically that buses tend to go up every year. LTD, bumps their contract up and stuff. I just wonder what that decrease represents.
I can take this one. Yeah. So we had, a population of 10,000 last year, and our contract came in at 35. We think going up to 15,000 a day. 55 was what was set for 2019, which was a banner year. So we reduced it only by 5 because we think we're still going to come in under 50,000 with a cap of 15,000 per day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other hands? Okay, let's vote. Who votes yes on this motion? Paxton, Arno, Lisa, Kevin, John, Tom, John, George, AJ, Sandra, Sue, and Ann. Okay, motion passes 12-0. Thank you, everybody. And the last budget is the general management budget.
I move that the board accept the 2023 general manager's budget at, what's our amount?
It's 1 million. 3,269.
1,003,269.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
That was AJ.
Yes.
Thank you. And any member input? No member input, any board input? And AJ, you are up first.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago when I first came on the board, one of the big decisions that we unfortunately had to make was about the decreasing the insurance for the employees, or not decreasing it, but going to a different plan. And in that decision, we also discussed when we were in a better position, we were thinking after COVID, we would relook at that and make sure that that was the plan that was still working for the employees. And so I guess my question is to Kirsten, in this budget, how do you see the insurance plan for the employees? Is it working? Should the board be looking at going back to where we were before? What's your thought? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, AJ. The plan that we have is a good, solid plan. The increase this year was modest. Our decreasing cost is because we had a couple new employees that their spouses had a excellent employee health insurance that they decided not to join ours. So that is why we see a decrease here. I don't think the employees that are on the plan have much of a problem with the 8% contribution that the board put in place. I think that someday, maybe when we are really back on our feet, we could bridge that conversation again. But for now, insurance is a very expensive cost to all employers. And I think we are comfortable with what we have right now. But someday, maybe if we're really, back on our feet financially and restored our reserves, that would be a nice thing to go back and revisit. But this year, I would not recommend that. I would think we should stay the course. Thank you.
And if I could too, we're still offering a gold plan as the basic plan that the fair is paying for, and we're still paying for family coverage. The main difference is that we're asking for the employees to cover a portion of it, which in prior years, they only had to pay if they wanted to upgrade their coverage.
Can I follow up real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, I thank you for those answers. I appreciate that. I do, because I made a promise when I made that vote 2 years ago. I do really want us to keep our eyes on that prize when we do get in a comfortable position. That's one of the first things that we restore to our employees.
Thank you, AJ. John S.
I guess I'm a little uncomfortable talking about payroll because I consider that to be a personnel matter. And I would prefer that the board had an opportunity to discuss this in closed session so that we could have because I know the board in recent years has been trying to keep personnel matters confidential. But it appears that so, I mean, what I'd like to do is to table this and have the board discuss the rest of the payroll in closed session. So I'd like to make a motion to table this and have a closed session to discuss it. And if that motion fails, then I have something else to say. Thank you. Or if I don't get a second, we'll see.
Does John have a second? Do we have a second to table the motion?
I want to table just the payroll part. The rest of the general manager budget, I don't have an issue with.
Okay, I'm not 100% clear how to do that, but okay, so do we have a second for that? Sue? Okay, so we'll vote on tabling a portion of the motion, the payroll portion. Okay, so yeah, we'll vote on that. So who votes yes on tabling that? John and Sue and Lisa and Anne. And okay, who votes no on tabling? Paxton, Arna, John Alexander, Kevin, AJ, George, Tom. So the tabling does not pass. So I think I go back to the stack.
Well, I had things I wanted to address if tabling was not appropriate, did not pass. So can I continue?
Okay.
Is there a COLA budgeted within this payroll budget? I see you shook your head, Hillary, so that means yes. Okay. Is there a pay increase for the executive director budgeted in this payroll budget? This is exactly what I did not want to discuss in open session.
And I don't think we should discuss it in open session. You can pass the overall budget and take something like that to a closed session.
Well, I can't vote for something that I don't know what it contains.
You're voting
That's why I wanted to discuss this in closed session. So if I'm not going to get an answer to that question, then I'll be voting against adopting this budget because I need an answer to that question first, because I think that's a board decision.
You're right, it is.
And so I don't know if it's in there. I don't know if it is in there, what the amount is. I don't recall the board ever discussing this or agreeing to anything on this.
Well, I'm going to go to stretch and no, there's not a raise in there for the executive director. It's the board's prerogative to do that. The overall budget, though, it's the executive director's prerogative to manage it and to set the pay scale for everybody else.
So if the question of the executive director raise is a decision of the board yet to make, I'm fine with approving it. I just want to make sure that by approving this budget, that decision was not already made
No, the budget committee and the executive director would not put in a raise. That's the budget, that's the board's prerogative to determine.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think that's something the board needs to put on its agenda to discuss.
Sue?
Just a little bit of clarification for me. Line 9810 for education and training. I'm wondering if you can give me any idea what kind of training you're anticipating doing or taking, Kirsten. I'm
Thank you,
just
Sue.
curious, that's all.
Yeah, no, I put similar to what I've done in 2022. I will put the team through DEI training, various management courses, things that will advance their skills in their jobs. So they could get specific training for their areas of expertise, but there will also be group trainings for the staff.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hillary? Oh, okay. John Alexander?
Yeah, so when I think about the budget and different parts passing, you know, I want to make sure that we take care of our staff. And if next time around, you know, understanding COLAs more, the COLA should be big. And I know that we did an evaluation of the executive director, and I'm assuming that salaries are a part of that. I don't want to get into the discussion right now, but I think that when we pass a budget, it's a benchmark. That's my understanding, and I really appreciate you budgeters in the precision that you put into this. It's absolutely incredible. It's still a benchmark, and we expect variances when we look at our P&L against the budget. So I'm hoping there's plenty here to take care of the staff. I agree that we need to make decisions, and it's very clear about what our role is with regards to whose salaries we deal with, which is one person. And so I was assuming that was all done. So yeah, we need to take that out of here, but make sure that there's enough room in here to take care of our staff, because Kirsten and the staff are just doing a fantastic job, and we need to be competitive to keep them. So this is my favorite part to pass.
Arna?
I don't know, my comment here may be inappropriate, but I'm just sorry that John didn't look at this budget in advance, call Hillary and ask his questions about salaries and, you know, the personnel stuff in a private conversation with Hillary to get that answer and not have to raise it here in a public meeting where it was very inappropriate. You know, we all had an opportunity to call her with questions about the budget. I know I took advantage of that. Hillary answered all of my questions, you know, and cleared everything up for me so that I didn't have to take a lot of meeting time to have her answer my questions. But especially with questions about personnel that really we don't want to do in public, those should have been asked privately to either Hillary or Linda so that you could have gotten your answers. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay, John S.
I discussed my questions with the board president. I thought that he was going to follow up and address them. I guess I was mistaken. And I don't really want to get into it, but I thought I was being responsible. I do have one more question for this. My understanding is that the fair is now using paid mediators to replace the grievance process, and I just wonder where that is in the budget, if that's in the general manager budget or where that money is coming from in the budget.
We are not using paid mediators on every instance. It was just for a few instances that dealt directly with board members. So then those were paid out of a GM expense line. So there is no specific budget. It's one of the contingency budgets that I paid that for.
Thank
and
you.
So she's not currently being used.
Thank you.
AJ?
Yeah, I want to agree with what Arna said just a few minutes ago. And I want to apologize to our executive director here. That was an uncomfortable situation. I think the whole board knows that we do not discuss those sort of things. Whether we get a motion passed or not doesn't give us the right to discuss things we know better not to discuss. We have closed sessions for those specific issues. And I want to apologize to the membership for us constantly, for some reason, putting you in a position where you feel this uncomfortable feeling where you're not getting information that and things like that. So it shouldn't have been done. It shouldn't have been said. And I want to apologize to both the membership and to our executive director.
Okay, so thanks, everybody. I don't have any other hands. So I think we can call the vote on this one. All right. Okay, so who votes yes on the passing the budget, this motion? Okay, Paxton, Arna, Lisa, Kevin, John, Alexander, Tom, John S., George, AJ, Sandra, Sue, and Ann. That is a 12-0. The motion passes. And that was the last one. So thank you, everybody, for all of your attention and conversation, discussion on that. I'm going to forgo the meeting evaluation in the interest of time. The next board meeting is next week, next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. Actually, it's a different channel, same Zoom, but different link. And Tom, do you want to say anything for the president's piece?
Sure. Thanks, Linda. I was in a meeting with someone not too long ago, and he did say something wonderful to me. And these aren't his exact words, but I think I'm pretty close, that when things feel really intense or difficult or perhaps insurmountable, he said, I've learned to smile. And even when people disagree, it helps release the tension and makes things lighter. And sometimes people even smile back. And I kind of want to leave you with a small, but I think meaningful quote by Wendy Mass. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And I just want to say to our fair family that please be kinder to each other. We're struggling with that, and I think kindness is important, and smile more. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Linda. That was awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Great
Thanks,
job.
Linda. Thanks, Hillary.
Thank you,
Good night.
Linda.
Yes, Linda, that was a really, really good run meeting. You really did a great job.
You did.
Yeah.
You nailed it,
Oh,
Linda.
Right on,
skills.
That's a
right on
stretch for me.
task, right up to 9 o'clock. All
It
right,
was
done.
good.
Meeting and we got our work done.
Yep, I never
Good
thought
night,
we'd get
everybody.
so close
Thank
to
you,
nine.
everybody.
Night.
Thank you, Hillary.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your great smile, Paxton.
Nice smile, Kirsten, too, and Paxton, and all of you smilers. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Nighty night.